A young man and woman, married for only a few hours, drove away from the courthouse and seemingly off the face of the earth, their blue Camaro vanishing with them into the humid Florida night. For 15 years, the case lay dormant, a cold file gathering dust. But then, in the wake of a destructive hurricane, graduate researchers scrutinizing new topographical data saw something impossible nestled deep within the coastal mangroves. It was a discovery that would dredge up a long-buried secret and expose a truth far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. The late afternoon sun slanted through the blinds of Nora Diaz's small St. Augustine home. At 61, she moved with a quiet deliberation. Her daily rituals, a carefully constructed defense against the void that had opened in her life one autumn evening in 1991, the night her only daughter disappeared. The jarring ring of her kitchen phone, a sound she still associated with bad news, sliced through the quiet afternoon. She dried her hands on a dish towel, her heart beginning a familiar, anxious rhythm. "Hello? Mrs. Diaz? This is Detective Miles Corbin with the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. Ma'am, I need to confirm your current location." Nora's breath caught. Over 15 years, she had fielded dozens of calls, each one a promising lead that dissolved into nothing. Yet, something in the detective's measured tone felt different, final. "I'm at home. Why? Has something happened?" "Mrs. Diaz, we need you to come to a site near the Guana River. We've located something we believe belonged to your daughter Elena and her husband Julian." The words struck her with the force of a physical impact. The receiver felt slick in her suddenly damp palm. "What is it? What did you find?" "We've recovered the blue Chevy Camaro from a mangrove estuary. We need you to make a positive identification. We've also reached out to the Hale family. Can you meet us at the access point off the A1A? The car. After all this time. Nora's voice was a raw whisper. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. She hung up without another word, her half-prepared dinner forgotten on the counter. Other drivers on the highway would have seen only an older woman in a sensible sedan, but inside, Nora's world was fracturing. The 30-minute drive along the scenic coastal highway felt like a journey through time, each mile dredging up memories she had fought for years to contain. The official conclusion had been that Elena and Julian had simply started a new life, eloping and cutting ties. It was the only explanation the authorities could offer a heartbroken mother. She had never truly accepted it. Her Elena would never abandon her, not after the bond they'd forged, just the two of them. She knew the sacrifices Nora had made. But 15 years of unbroken silence had eroded even her fierce certainty, leaving a fragile acceptance that perhaps her daughter had chosen another world over their own. Now that fragile peace was being swept away like a sandcastle in the tide. The scene at the river access point was one of controlled chaos. Sheriff's vehicles and FWC trucks crowded the unpaved lot, their flashing lights painting the moss-draped oaks in strobing blues and reds. Deputies managed a perimeter with yellow tape while a small crowd of onlookers gathered. Nora parked and got out on legs that felt like they might not hold her. Her gaze was drawn past the officials to the flatbed truck at the center of it all. There it sat, the 1991 Chevy Camaro, water and black muck streaming from its rusted undercarriage. A thick coat of algae and barnacles covered its once vibrant blue paint, and the windows were clouded with silt. But even through the ravages of time and salt water, she knew it. Conrad Hale had made such a show of giving it to Julian, a graduation present that doubled as a wedding gift, posing for pictures with the beaming couple beside it. "Mrs. Diaz?" Detective Corbin approached, his face etched with a weary professionalism. He was younger than his voice had suggested, perhaps in his late 40s, with the tired eyes of a man who'd seen too much of the state's darker side. "Detective?" She couldn't tear her eyes from the car. "How, after so long?" "Let me introduce you to the people who can explain that." He led her toward a pair of young adults in University of Florida polo shirts, who looked barely older than Elena had been. A young woman with a focused, intelligent gaze stepped forward. "Mrs. Diaz, I'm Sarah Jenkins. We're graduate researchers with the Geomatics program. We're analyzing post-hurricane coastal changes using LIDAR." She held up a tablet displaying a complex, color-coded map. "We were mapping erosion patterns in the Guana estuary when the new data showed this distinct rectangular anomaly in a dense mangrove thicket, an area inaccessible by land. When we cross-referenced the dimensions with old missing vehicle reports, your daughter's Camaro was a potential match. It was big local news at the time. We forwarded the coordinates to the sheriff's office. Detective Corbin took over. The location is incredibly remote. The hurricane must have shifted enough of the silt and overgrowth to make it visible to their equipment. The water there is deep, part of an old channel. It settled on the bottom and was swallowed by the mangroves over the years. The recovery had been a grueling 6-hour operation involving a specialized marine unit and a heavy-lift crane. They had to cut a channel through the mangrove roots just to reach it. Nora heard the crunch of tires on gravel and turned to see the Hales arriving. Conrad Hale led the way, his imposing presence undiminished by age. His wife, Catherine, followed, a picture of strained elegance, with their son, Evan, trailing behind them. The years had changed them, but the old resentment flared in Nora's chest. She recalled their last conversation vividly, Conrad's veiled accusations, his implication that her working-class daughter had entrapped his promising son, as if love could be itemized on a balance sheet. Detective Corbin excused himself to brief the newcomers. Nora watched Conrad's face as he surveyed the wreckage, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes before his stoic mask settled back into place. "Yes, that's the Camaro I bought for Julian," he confirmed, his voice booming across the lot. "The plate matches, JDH 1991. I had it customized for him." Nora stepped forward, her voice tight. "What did you find inside?" The detective's expression grew more somber. "No human remains were recovered, Mrs. Diaz. The interior was filled with silt, but there were no signs of a struggle that we could discern after 15 years underwater. We found only 2 items." An officer brought forward 2 evidence bags. One held a small, tarnished brass compass. The other contained the laminated remnants of a receipt. Conrad nodded curtly at the first bag. "That was Julian's. An antique I gave him. He never went anywhere without it." Catherine Hale's composure finally fractured. "Detective, what does this mean? If they aren't in the car, where could they be?" "Mrs. Hale, I find it highly unlikely your son and his wife would deliberately sink their own car in a remote mangrove swamp. Someone put this vehicle here in 1991 to hide it. This is no longer a missing persons case. We are opening a homicide investigation." "Homicide?" Catherine's hand flew to her throat. "You think someone killed them?" "We are considering every possibility, but whoever did this knew this area intimately. They knew where the deep channels were, how to get a vehicle here without being seen. That suggests a local connection." Conrad's face flushed with anger. "Before you go chasing phantom killers, you need to have your divers search every inch of that river. The bodies could be anywhere." "Our dive teams are expanding their search grid as we speak, Mr. Hale." Conrad turned on Evan, his voice low but carrying on the still air. "This is what happens when you get involved with people from the wrong side of the tracks. They bring nothing but trouble." "Dad." Evan's shock was plain. "You know Julian loved Elena. She would never—" Nora's control finally snapped. "Are you still blaming my daughter? After all this time?" Conrad rounded on her. "She could have had associates. Old boyfriends, people from that neighborhood of hers who got jealous of my son." "Associates?" Nora's voice rose. "If my daughter had been after your money, she would have stuck around to spend it, not vanish with your son. Don't you dare slander her memory." "Your son is the one who took her innocence," Nora shot back. "She wanted to wait, but he was persuasive. That's why they had to run off to the courthouse. Elena was only 23. The argument spiraled, old wounds torn open anew under the flashing police lights. Onlookers stared as officers moved to create a space between the two families. That's enough. Detective Corbin's command cut through the tension. This isn't helping anyone. You are both parents who have lost a child. I understand the pain, but trading insults won't bring us any closer to the truth. He gently guided Nora away. Mrs. Diaz, please. Emotions are high. Don't let him get to you. He's trying to stain my daughter's memory, Nora said, her voice trembling with a mix of fury and grief. My girl who volunteered at the animal shelter, who dreamed of being a veterinarian. I know. We'll look at every angle back at the station. For now, I need you to go home. I will call you the moment we have anything new. Can you drive? Nora took a few deep breaths, steadying herself. I can drive. I just need a minute. She walked to her car, her body aching with a grief 15 years old, but as sharp as if it were yesterday. Through her windshield, she saw the Hales still gathered near the flatbed, Conrad gesturing emphatically while speaking to the detective. The sight of him, so confident, so unyielding, made her sick. She started her car and pulled away, leaving the grim spectacle behind. But she couldn't escape the image of that mud-caked blue car, or the chilling question of what really happened on that long-ago autumn night. The silence of Nora's house was suffocating. The adrenaline from the confrontation had faded, leaving her feeling hollowed out and frail. She stood in her living room, the world seeming to tilt on its axis. The car, the mangroves, Conrad's venom. Almost involuntarily, her feet carried her down the hall to Elena's room. She hadn't opened the door in years, the pain too acute. It creaked in protest, releasing a stale, musty scent. 15 years of stillness had left their mark. Dust motes swirled in the fading sunlight that filtered through the yellowed lace curtains. Everything was exactly as Elena had left it that day in 1991. A tube of lipstick on the dresser, a novel turned face down on the nightstand, a favorite sweater draped over a chair. But time had been unkind. The clothes in the closet felt brittle, the vibrant colors faded. "Oh, mija," Nora whispered, her throat constricting. She forced open the window, letting in the salt-laced air. Then, with a new sense of purpose, she went to the garage for boxes and cleaning supplies. If the police were truly investigating this as a homicide, they might need to see Elena's things. And maybe, just maybe, it was finally time to pack away these ghosts. She began with the closet, her hands trembling as she folded a dress Elena had worn to her high school prom. Each item was a memory. The blouse from her first date with Julian. The jeans she'd lived in for an entire summer. As Nora cleared the top shelf, she found things that weren't Elena's. A man's leather-banded watch, a University of Florida sweatshirt, a bottle of expensive cologne. Julian's things. A muscle in Nora's jaw tightened. She knew he'd stayed over sometimes, despite her misgivings. She'd raised Elena with traditional values, but young love follows its own compass. And Julian Hale, handsome, charming, and from a world of wealth and privilege, had been a force of nature. She started a separate box, labeling it clearly. Julian Hale, personal items. The task took hours. By the time she was done, her body ached, but the room felt lighter, cleaner. The boxes were stacked neatly against a wall, sealed and ready. Nora loaded Julian's box into her car and sat for a moment, debating her next move. The Hales lived in a gated community south of the city, a world of manicured lawns and waterfront mansions. But it felt necessary. These were the last pieces of their son. The drive was tense. The Hale estate was an imposing Mediterranean-style villa set behind ornate iron gates. Nora parked on the street and carried the box to the intercom. Before she could press the button, the gates swung open and Conrad's black sedan emerged, with him at the wheel. His face hardened when he saw her. "What in God's name are you doing here?" You are not welcome on this property. Nora held the box forward. I'm returning Julian's things. They were in Elena's room. Leave it on the curb, he snapped, gesturing dismissively. Someone will get it. Now move your car. Resisting the urge to drop the box at his feet, Nora set it down carefully on the paver driveway. She returned to her car and pulled away from the gate. As Conrad's sedan passed, he didn't even glance at her. He sped off down the road, leaving Nora sitting in her car, staring at the lone cardboard box on the immaculate driveway. It felt wrong, leaving his belongings there like trash. On impulse, she got out, retrieved the box, walked to the front door, and rang the bell. Evan answered, his expression surprised. Mrs. Diaz. I'm sorry to bother you, she said, holding out the box. These are Julian's. Your father told me to leave them, but I wanted to make sure you received them. Actually, Evan hesitated, then stepped aside. Mom and I were just starting to go through his room. There's something you should see. Please, come in. Your father made it clear I'm not to be here. Evan's jaw tightened. Don't worry about my father. Please. Against her better judgment, Nora followed him into a house of soaring ceilings and cool marble floors. He led her up a grand, curving staircase to Julian's room. Catherine Hale looked up from a box on the floor, her eyes red-rimmed. Nora, thank you for bringing this. Of course. Nora set her box down, seeing they were engaged in the same painful task she had just completed. It just seemed like it was time, Catherine said softly. Evan, Catherine prompted, gesturing to an ornate gift box on Julian's desk. This is what we wanted to show you. Evan handed the box to Nora. It was heavy, expensive. Inside, nestled on black satin, was a delicate lace chemise, clearly costly. Tucked into the lid was a small embossed card. It read, For my siren. Ace. Ace? Nora looked up, confused. I don't know anyone with those initials. Elena never mentioned... Neither did Julian, Catherine said. We found it hidden in the back of his closet. He never gave it to her. They all stared at the intimate gift, the same question hanging in the air. If someone named AC sent this to Elena, why did Julian have it, unopened? It's brand new, Evan pointed out, showing her the tag still attached. Never worn. Look at the price, $400. That was a fortune in 1991. Why would Julian keep this? Nora wondered aloud. If another man was sending my daughter gifts like this. That's what we can't figure out, Catherine said. Julian had a jealous streak. He would have confronted this person, not hidden the evidence. Nora closed the box with grim finality. We need to give this to Detective Corbin. This could be a lead. I agree, Evan said. I'll drive you to the station. As they prepared to leave, a thought struck Nora. The receipt from the car, did the detective say where it was from? He did, Evan recalled. A boutique called La Finesse on Avilles Street. That's where this is from, Catherine said, pointing to the name on the gift box. The pieces were clicking into place, forming a disturbing picture. They walked out toward the garage, a cavernous, climate-controlled space that housed the Hale fleet. Evan was just unlocking his car when the deep rumble of Conrad's sedan announced his return. He's back already, Nora murmured. It's fine, Evan said, though his posture had stiffened. Conrad stormed out of his car, his face a mask of fury. What is she still doing here? Daniel, I told you. Dad, calm down. We found something in Julian's room, something important. Evan held up the gift box. And you're taking it where? To the press? To humiliate this family even more? To the police, Evan said firmly. It's evidence. Conrad snatched the box from him, his expression twisting as he saw the contents. Lingerie, this is your evidence? Look at the card, Nora said. It's signed Ace. Conrad's hesitation was almost imperceptible. How would I know every person my son knew? It was probably one of her old boyfriends. "We're taking it to the police," Evan repeated, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Fine," Conrad snapped, "but I'm coming with you, and I'm driving." At the station, Detective Corbin was in a meeting, so they left the evidence with a desk sergeant who logged it carefully. The sergeant examined the box. La Finesse, high-end place. They might still have old sales records. Some of those places keep meticulous client files. Throughout the exchange, Conrad's phone buzzed repeatedly. Each time he glanced at the screen and silenced it, his agitation growing. "Sir, is that urgent?" the sergeant asked politely. "It's business," Conrad grunted. As they walked back to the parking lot, his phone buzzed again. "Dad, for God's sake, just answer it," Evan said, his patience wearing thin. "It's complicated. I need to get to the marina." "We still need to finish Julian's room," Evan reminded him. "Whatever, you ride with me. She can follow." "Actually, Dad, you take my car to the marina. I'll ride back with Mrs. Diaz and we can finish packing." Conrad's phone buzzed one more time. As he pulled it from his pocket to silence it, a set of keys fell from the same pocket, clattering on the asphalt. Nora's eyes were drawn to a single unusual key on the ring, attached to a small engraved brass tag. Before she could read it, Conrad scooped the keys up. "Dad, what was that?" "Nothing. Keys to a storage locker at the yacht club." He pocketed them quickly, too quickly. "I'll take your car. You two do what you have to do." He strode to Evan's car without another glance, leaving Nora and Evan standing in the lot. "Your father seems stressed," Nora observed. Evan sighed. "He's always been like this. Work is his solution for everything." They drove back to the Hale estate in Nora's car. As she pulled into the circular driveway, a man in the crisp uniform of a chauffeur was polishing Conrad's sedan. "That's Milo Ortiz," Evan explained. "Dad's driver. He's been with the family for 30 years. Milo approached them, a man in his late 50s with weathered features and watchful eyes. "Mr. Evan, your father called, asked me to bring his car back from the marina and take yours there for him." "Thanks, Milo," Evan said. They left him to his work and went inside. Nora gathered the box of Elena's belongings Catherine had packed for her. As she walked back to her car, she heard voices from the garage. Milo was speaking in low, urgent tones to a younger man, someone in his late 20s with a nervous energy about him. Nora pretended to arrange the box in her trunk, watching them in her side mirror. The younger man kept glancing around, shifting his weight from foot to foot. As Nora got into her car, she saw Milo grab the man's arm, his grip surprisingly strong. Through her open window, she caught a fragment of their conversation. "The boss said to lay low. He'll handle it." "But they found the car, Milo," the younger man hissed. "He knows. Just stay quiet." Milo's voice was firm, a command. He then steered the younger man toward a nondescript service entrance at the side of the house. Nora's hands were trembling on the steering wheel. Every instinct told her something was deeply wrong. The name Ace, Conrad's bizarre behavior, and now this clandestine meeting. She pulled out of the driveway, but instead of heading home, she parked down the street, hidden by a large hedge, and waited. 15 minutes later, Milo emerged from the side of the house, got into a dark pickup truck, and drove away. Nora made a split-second decision. She followed him. Her heart pounded as she tailed the truck at a discreet distance, feeling like a character in a spy movie. The truck didn't head for the city, but turned east toward the network of boatyards and industrial lots that lined the intracoastal waterway. It finally pulled into a large, fenced-off construction site. A large sign read, "Future Home of Hale Point Marina and Yacht Club." Nora parked across the street, her view partially obscured by construction equipment. What was she doing? But she had to know. A few minutes later, Conrad's sedan arrived. He got out, his face grim, and approached the pickup. Milo and the younger man got out to meet him. From her vantage point, Nora could see them arguing, their gestures sharp and angry. Then the three men walked toward a newly constructed section of the property, a massive concrete boat ramp leading down into the water. Conrad pointed decisively at a specific spot on the ramp near the water line. The younger man shook his head violently, but Conrad grabbed his shoulder, speaking directly into his face. Nora couldn't hear the words, but the menace was unmistakable. After a few more tense moments, they returned to their vehicles and drove off in separate directions. Nora waited until the coast was clear, then pulled out her phone. Her hands shook so badly she could barely dial. "Detective Corbin, it's Nora Diaz. I followed Conrad Hale's driver. He met with Conrad at his new marina construction site. They were arguing about the boat ramp. I think you need to look there. I think that's where they are." The detective's voice was calm but firm. "Mrs. Diaz, where are you right now? Don't move. We're on our way." The next hours were a blur of flashing lights and official activity. The construction site was sealed off. Detective Corbin arrived and listened intently as Nora recounted everything she had seen. Warrants were issued. By dawn, a forensics team was at the boat ramp with ground-penetrating radar. The radar showed two distinct anomalies, buried deep beneath the reinforced concrete that had been poured 15 years ago. Conrad Hale, Milo Ortiz, and Milo's nephew, Leo Ortiz, were all taken into custody for questioning. Faced with the impending excavation, Leo Ortiz confessed. Conrad Hale had been furious about the elopement, seeing it as a betrayal that threatened the family's social standing and his business empire. He had hired Leo to try and break up the couple, using the codename Ace to send gifts and create jealousy. When it didn't work, his plan escalated. He ordered Milo and Leo to stage a carjacking on the couple's wedding night to scare Elena into leaving Julian. But the confrontation went wrong. Julian fought back fiercely to protect his new wife. In the struggle, both were killed. Panicked, Conrad orchestrated a cover-up. He had them sink the Camaro in the Guana River, a place he knew from his years of boating. Then, under the cover of night, using his own construction equipment, he buried the bodies of his son and daughter-in-law under the foundation of the new boat ramp at his future marina, a permanent, unmarked grave. The forensic evidence was irrefutable. Dental records confirmed the remains belonged to Elena Diaz and Julian Hale. Financial records uncovered a trust fund set up under an alias, which had been making regular payments to Milo and Leo Ortiz for 15 years, hush money. The key Nora had seen Conrad drop was for a private locker at his yacht club. Inside, police found the urn containing the ashes of another man, an alias Conrad had created to throw off any potential investigation into Julian's disappearance. He had cremated a stranger and kept the records, a final, cynical piece of his elaborate deception. Conrad Hale was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Milo Ortiz received 25 years for his role in the murders and cover-up. Leo Ortiz, in exchange for his full testimony, received a lesser sentence. Months later, Nora Diaz stood in a quiet corner of a St. Augustine cemetery. The sun was warm on her face. A new headstone, simple and elegant, marked the final resting place of her daughter. Elena Diaz Hale, beloved daughter. For the first time in 15 years, the frantic, searching part of her soul was quiet. The truth had been monstrous, but it was the truth. Her daughter hadn't abandoned her. She had been loved, and she had been fought for. And now, finally, she could rest. Nora placed a bouquet of fresh daisies on the grave, whispered, "Descansa en paz, mija," and walked away, leaving the ghosts of the past behind her at last.